I can reveal the former US President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with prostate cancer with metastasis to the bone. And he and his family, Jill Biden there pictured, his wife, are reviewing treatment options. That's according to his office in a statement released just a few moments ago. So that's the former US President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with an aggressive, it's described, an aggressive form of prostate cancer. The statement said last week President Joe Biden was seen for a new finding of a prostate nodule after experiencing urinary symptoms. On Friday, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer, characterised by a Gleason score of 9. While this represents a more aggressive form of the disease, the cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for effective management. The president and his family are reviewing treatment options with his physicians. So, yes, just to reiterate, former US President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer. We've not heard yet from President Donald Trump just yet, or any other political names from the US, but I'm sure the likes of Keir Starmer and so on will be releasing statements throughout the night. We'll keep you updated. Let's get the latest now from the chairman of Republicans Overseas UK, Greg Swenson. He's live from Chicago, the Windy City. Greg, tell us, please, what's the latest? What do you know over there? And indeed, what's the mood and the atmosphere like stateside?
Yeah, look, the mood prior to today has been really optimistic. I mean, obviously the news in the last few weeks with President Trump, especially the trip to the Gulf, has been fantastic. So this is sad news today. There's no doubt about it. But what's circulating around social media, Ben, is, when did he know this, and when did the administration know it? It doesn't sound like stage 4 cancer can happen quickly, and I hate to be negative at a time like this. I do feel sorry for the president. But, this is, and you have to remember, Ben, this is in the context of perhaps the greatest cover-up in American history. Yeah. The 4-year cover-up of President Biden's cognitive challenges. So, there's not a lot of trust in legacy media right now in the U.S., and there's surely not a lot of trust in the former Biden administration and the people, the inner circle around him. So that's why there's a lot of questions circling right now.
I want to talk about that cover-up in just a second. Let me read you some tributes that are pouring in now for Joe Biden, not least from President Donald Trump, who has said on his Truth Social, "Melania and I are saddened to hear about Joe Biden's recent medical diagnosis. We extend our warmest and best wishes to Jill," that's his wife, "and the family, and we wish Joe a fast and successful recovery." And the former UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has said, "I'm so sorry to hear the news that President Biden has prostate cancer. Too many men are struck by this disease. We must continue to raise awareness of the danger it poses. Wishing Joe all the best for his treatment." We've also had tonight, Greg, tributes from Meghan McCain and indeed even Marjorie Taylor Greene, which was interesting as a massive MAGA loyalist. Yeah. Greg, talking about the cover-up of Joe Biden, one of my panellists tonight, former UK Armed Forces or Defence Armed Forces Minister Bill Remmel, and others, was talking about this new book from Jake Tapper from CNN. Deep diving into the cover-up and, doing allegedly some investigative work into the cover-up of Joe Biden's health. I was making the point, Greg, that people like Jake Tapper were the prime instigators of that cover-up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really kind of funny coming from Jake Tapper. He, amongst basically the whole crew at CNN, were involved in the cover-up. They obviously knew. They all knew. And now that he's trying to sell books, he's willing to come out and admit it. But it's pretty shameless, if you ask me. And again, this is a sad day for the Biden family. I'm not trying to, look at it as anything but an unpleasant amount of unpleasant news. But, I think, again, in the context of the cover-up and Jake Tapper running around trying to sell books, it's not a good look.
Yeah, and Greg, I don't think you're misspeaking at a time like this, because Joe Biden he could have been the next president. He was running until he was ousted. Yeah. He was downed in a coup from Kamala Harris and the DNC and Pelosi and co. But he could have been won a second term as US president. This guy, off the back of a cover-up, an institutional political cover-up, where Americans, hundreds of millions of Americans, were deceived by politicians, by the media. This guy could have been leading the free world.
Yeah. No, it's outrageous, Ben. And look, the cover-up has been going on for 4 years, even during the first campaign in 2020. But also, if you think about it, this would have been diagnosed by his physical that he made quite a splash about. He had a physical back in very early 2024. He refused to take a cognitive test for obvious reasons, but you'd think either the doctors would have picked this up. So either they covered it up or the doctors were asleep at the wheel. I don't know how, I don't imagine you could miss what's now stage 4 prostate cancer. So look, I think there's a lot of questions here, and I think we're right to be skeptical about part 2 of the cover-up.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring my panel in a second, Greg, just to have a chat with you. But in February last year, you just mentioned there, it's a surprise that nothing was picked up before. In February last year, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, who was Joe Biden's doctor, said there were no new concerns with the president's health. He said at the time, and I quote, "The president feels well, and this year's physical identified no new concerns. He continues to be fit for duty and fully executes all of his responsibilities without any exemptions or accommodations." That's what Dr. O'Connor said at the time. Bill Ramel, you had a question for Greg Swenson, or something to say at least.
Yeah, so what I've heard Greg just say is that Joe Biden and the people around him have hidden stage 4 cancer from the public. Joe Biden stood down almost a year ago. Is it really credible that you would keep stage 4 cancer private for that period of time? I think this is probably genuinely something that has come on, and, we should treat it at face value.
Did you hear that, Greg?
Yeah, no, I sorry, it's a little noisy here, but I think I got the basics. But look, unless these people are under oath, they always lie. The cover-up has started again back
Donald
in
Trump
early
lies every
21.
day of the week.
Well, that's got nothing to do with Joe Biden.
Well, no, but Greg's speaking on behalf of President Trump, and
No, he's not.
Donald Trump is an absolute liar who has told stacks and stacks
Greg
of
hasn't
lies.
mentioned Trump once in this conversation.
He speaks for Republicans abroad who are the major advocates for Donald Trump.
But he's not talking about Trump. He's talking about Joe Biden and the...
No, but he was accusing Biden and the people around him of lying.
He said
and copper and kettle black are the words that come to mind.
You've literally had Secret Service agents literally walk beside Biden in his last days, making sure that if he falls, they can catch him. That's how bad the cover-up has been.
They had plans to put him in a wheelchair in his second term if he had gone ahead. That was revealed recently.
And it's a real indictment of where the US is. I mean, let's not forget, Joe Biden started in 1972 as a senator in Delaware, and one of his first campaigns was about government accountability. And look at where it ended up.
Yeah, he's a career politician. Greg, last word to you before I let you go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just your final thoughts. Where do we go from here? What does the future look like for the Bidens?
I mean, it's breaking news, so it's difficult to digest a lot of the noise that's circulating. But I do think, again, you have to look at this in the context of the greatest cover-up of all time. That's not my opinion. That's Jake Tapper's opinion. It's a lot of other Democrats that are finally coming clean with this.
Yeah, Jake Tapper doing basically covering up the cover-up. You couldn't make it up.
Yeah.
Greg Swenson, thank you for your company in Chicago. Have a good rest of your day.